And we are live, and I'm here with Mr. Paul Lewis, the winner of the very, very first Tasty Monthly Jam 2020. Congratulations, Paul. Fabulous to have you
Thank you
here.
very much. Cheers.
How are you feeling right now?
Absolutely elated is a word, I think. Yeah, it's a great privilege actually to win the first monthly jam. It's kind of like getting the first issue of Krang with AC/DC on the front. That's how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think AC/DC was first and Richie
Great.
Blackmore was second. I don't know. He was pretty early on anyway.
Yeah.
So you basically you went to the Lick Library office today.
I did. Yes. Yeah.
And you had a choice of 3 Boss pedals, and I have to say a quick shout out and a big thank you to Boss for sponsoring. And tell us which pedal you picked and why. I know there wasn't a ton of choice, but
I'll show you. It's this little baby. It's a blues driver, and it's a really great pedal actually. I've used Boss pedals for quite a few years. More lately, I've been using the multi-effect. So currently, I'm using the GT100.
right.
Prior to that, I used the GT8. But before that, I had a bank of stomp boxes. And this competition with this pedal has kind of prompted me to revisit the stomp boxes again, because sometimes we forget just how really good kind of basic things are, especially analog pedals, and it's good sometimes to change things a bit.
I mean, you've actually been not just as a player, but you've been involved in studios for many years.
I run my studios, OTR studios, for almost 20 years, and that ended 5 years ago now. Basically, the landlord sold the building for quite a big sum of money to a bunch of developers, and that was the end of my business effectively. It was in Hackney in East London, and the rents were so expensive around there, and I was getting quite a good deal from the landlord, and I just couldn't afford to relocate the business. So that was the end of it, basically.
That was the end of that. So tell us a little bit about how you got started playing, what your influences were, and what got you going, basically.
Yeah, my very early influence was my cousin Pete. He played in a Shadows type band, and my mum's side of the family are very musical. Her brother Joe used to play piano accordion, and his sons had a band together, and that was my cousin Pete's, and he kind of encouraged me to play. I used to go and see him play with his bands, and he wasn't that much older than me. There's about 6 or 7 years difference between us. But I got my first electric guitar at 10 years old, and started learning songs just by playing on one string and trying to work out tunes just on one string, and that actually was really good training for me, because it developed my musical ear, which came in very handy later on, because me and musical theory just don't seem to get on very well, to be honest. It's got better over the years, but I seem to have a bit of an aversion to learning theory. I don't know if it's because I maybe find it a bit boring, I don't know, or because I'd rather be playing than studying, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
So even to this day, I learn everything by ear. So I tend to tune into things to the nth degree, and that comes in very handy when I'm learning cover songs, because I'll listen to chord voicings, and also listen to the solos and try and gauge whereabouts on the neck they're playing the notes, and so I can get a bit kind of close to the original, I suppose, really. So that's quite useful. But if I had to advise my younger self now, sort of going back all them years, I'd say, learn your theory, son. That'd be my advice to my younger self, because it really does shortcut things, and I think I would have possibly been a better guitarist than I am by now if I'd have studied my theory.
But it's a healthy balance, isn't it? It's a healthy balance. But what was the, who was the band or which guitar player, you know, kind of took you from hanging around with people that played piano accordions to being a kind of full-on rock guitar player?
Well, my very earliest influences were Eric Clapton in Cream, Jimi Hendrix, and Paul Kossoff in Free. Like that. They were my very early influences. So consequently, my background is blues. So I was playing blues first before I got into the metal scene. And then I got into Black Sabbath and Deep Purple. So it was Tony Iommi and Richie Blackmore. Right. And then in the kind of early 70s, maybe slightly later now, I had a bit of a revelation. I started work very early, actually. I left school at 15, and I was working in the post office in central London. Oh, okay. And one of my friends suggested that I go to the Marquee to see this band called UFO. So I went along, and there's Michael Schenker, long blonde hair, skinny jeans, emerald green sparkly platform boots. I thought, that's who I want to be like. So Michael Schenker was my first really big guitar hero, and then later on it was Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen. But I've got so many influences, but possibly Michael Schenker's probably my biggest influence.
And he was probably like 17. He was probably like 17 at that time. He was very young, wasn't he, when he joined you?
He was. Yeah, there's not much difference between our ages, actually. I think he may be about 2 or 3 years older than me.
Right.
I'm quite a bit older than I look. That's what I've been told, anyway.
I mean, that must have been to have Schenker as an influence at that age. I mean, was that scary or was it inspiring? Did you? Because I mean, he was
very inspiring. Actually, I felt that listening to his licks and trying to fathom out what he was playing kind of improved my playing in leaps and bounds. And, it was very much of the time, because around that time it's when I first started getting into what was the new wave British heavy metal. So my first heavy metal band was Devil's Chariot, and we used to play at places like Ruskin Arms and the Woolwich Tram Shed. That was in my very early 20s, and then almost in my mid 20s, that's when I joined Satan's Empire for the first time, and they had relocated from Dundee in Scotland to London, and Wayne, the bass player, had joined them about 6 months before I did. The bass player couldn't travel from Scotland; he was studying, and then they decided to expand the lineup to include a lead guitarist, and that's when I ended up joining them. Everything went really well. It was brilliant.
Tell us a little bit about the Satan's Empire thing, because you're still in that band today.
What happened, Satan's Empire lasted about, after I joined them, we lasted about 3 or 4 years, and then it just come to an end. We couldn't get a deal. The interest wasn't there. Punk music was starting to come in, and people were kind of going off the metal stuff. And then, so we had a very, very big hiatus. And then we decided to reform. There was some interest from where was it now, in Belgium,
right?
And there's a lot of, Satan's Empire have always been kind of a cult band, and we had a track called Soldiers of War on Neat Records, Lead Weight compilation, and that was exchanging hands for quite a lot of money over in Europe. And so we heard that there was people in Europe that were interested in hearing the band, and altogether it took about 2 or 3 years for everything to come together again, because of various circumstances, and we'd all fragmented and moved to different places from being East London, to all over the place. But anyway, we had a meeting towards the end of 2015 in Cambridge, which was a fairly central meeting point for everyone. Decided that we would reform. But our original drummer didn't want to do it. So that's when Gary Bowler came into the fray, and he came in just to help us first of all. And he was an absolute phenomenon. He was a great drummer, and he fitted in straight away. And then we started rearranging the old material. But bear in mind, by this time it was over 30 years old, and there was a bit of a prog element to the original Satan's Empire, and all our songs were about 7 or 8 minutes long, and we needed to kind of streamline it for the modern market. So Barry was very instrumental helping us to bring the songs up to date. And then everything was going so well that we asked him if he'd join us permanently, and he did. And that's the current lineup. Yeah. But he's involved with a lot of things, actually. He played with Moonblade for many years. He got invited to join Motorhead at one time before Mickey D. And unfortunately, there was some visa problems, and that didn't happen. And that's when Mickey ended up joining them. But their loss is our gain. Carry on with us. Yeah.
And so with Satan's Empire now, like, what are you guys looking to do? Are you just looking to having fun? Are you looking to go?
No, it's gone into a very serious project. That was original. Probably the original intention. We didn't expect it to go quite so well as it did, but within 3 months of forming, we got asked to play the Brofest Festival in Newcastle, and we played there, and that kind of catapulted the band more into the big time. Then we signed our first record deal with 3M's Music, released our first album. That took quite a long time to sort out, and it come out, that was a couple of years ago, and that was released on the 3M's label. Sold pretty well. And then from that we kicked on, wrote our second album, Hail the Empire. That was released on Dissonance Productions, which is part of a Plastic Head organisation. That came out in late February, early March this year. We had everything set up. We were meant to be playing British Steel this year in France. This is next month now. Been rescheduled to next year. We had a few dates set up to promote the album. We had an album launch set up in London, and all that had to be shelved because of the pandemic. But so we've been using that time. Obviously, for a while, we couldn't get back together because none of the rehearsal studios were open. Once our rehearsal studio opened, we rehearsed in Welwyn Garden City, which is a central point for all of us. And that was open. Then we started working on songs for our third album. So we're actually about 6 songs into that, and now we're prolific. So all being well, we're hoping that Dissonance will take up the option on that one, and maybe that one will come out next year, all being well.
Yeah, or you would be doing some shows once this whole thing, this whatever it is, it's done, or we live with it. I guess you'll be back gigging again. Now, as a complete sort of juxtaposition, I suppose you would say, to Satan's Empire, you have your cover band, Rock Candy.
That's right, yeah. That's going incredibly well, actually. It's been together for just over 2 years now. I'm quite fortunate because prior to that, I played in a rock covers band called Anthem for nearly 12 years, and we split up at the end of 2017. And a lot of people were quite sad about that, me included. But the main reason for that is because our bass player was very ill at the time, and he couldn't do a lot of the gigs, and we ended up getting a series of deps in. And our vocalist Kenny, he basically grew up with Mark, the bass player, and they were very, very close, as were we all as a band. And he decided that he really didn't want to carry on without him and wanted to try something else. You know,
Right, was, yeah.
Pulled time on it. So we kind of split up amicably, done our final gig. I think it was the 17th or 18th of December in the Cauliflower, which is a really, really good place to do, a good venue. And the place was absolutely packed out, and that was our final gig. And I thought, well, okay, what do I do now? I knew that I'd miss playing covers stuff, so that's when I decided to put my new band together, and I knew I wanted Pete Cowan to play drums for me, and I asked him. Fortunately, he said yes straight away. I also wanted Phil Toombs to play bass for me, and he'd decked for Anthem quite a few times, and all the Anthem fans already knew him. He's an incredible bass player, and I just knew that Pete and Phil would get on well together, and they actually got on better than I thought they would. They've both got the same sense of humour. They're both really into Monty Python humour and Dad's Army and things like that. It's absolutely hilarious.
Everyone loves Dad's Army. Come on.
Yeah. So we got together, started rehearsing, looking for a vocalist, and that was where we almost come unstuck, because it was a very tall order to get someone that was up to a kind of standard we were looking for. So I had a word with one of my friends, Sally, who's a photographer, and she knows basically everyone. And she suggested Rod Rivers, who ended up joining us. Initially, he's supposed to be vocalist, and then it was going to be the same lineup as Anthem, just guitar, bass, drums, front man. But when he came down, I discovered what a great guitarist he is, and he gives me a run for my money. Actually, you know, he's really good. So basically, that was good because we had more options, and for the majority of songs he's playing guitar as well, and he does the odd solo as well, which he does very, very well. But he's got very much of a blues based background, the same as me, and he's very much into Slash and guitarists like he's a big Guns N' Roses fan and a huge Led Zeppelin fan. So we absolutely get on like house on fire, and the band's a very tight unit, and we kind of hit the ground running and done our debut gig about 4 months after we formed, and that was at a Crown, Romeo Corner.
Yeah, no, well,
I know you're very familiar with it.
Well, I've lived around that way for years. So.
Absolutely, yeah, I know. and yeah, that abs. You know, we went down and had some storm on our first gig, and the place was packed, and the gigs have been great from now on. So once this pandemic's over, we have actually managed to do a couple of gigs in the last month, but they've been socially distanced ones. The first one was at a Crown outside, and we did that as an acoustic gig with Rod and myself playing acoustic guitar. Phil played his electric bass, but very low down, and Pete used hot rods on his kit because he's an incredibly loud drummer. He had 12 years playing with Metalworks, and he still does the occasional depth for them now, but he pulled away from there a few years ago. So he's an incredibly powerful drummer, and even with hot rods he's still quite loud, but just about low enough that we can do acoustic gigs.
And how can people find out about both Satan's Empire and Rock Candy?
Both of them bands are on Facebook. We've got Facebook pages.
Okay.
So, trying to remember now. I put up the links on the Tasty Monthly Jam page because they're not in my head at the moment. So
but I mean, if people search for Satan's Empire on Facebook, they're going to find you. And if they search for Rock Candy, they're going to find you. If they put in, if they search for it, they'll find it.
They would do, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. So, what does the future hold? Are you just going to, are you just happy sticking with these couple of projects for now? And
yeah, definitely carry on doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And of course, now the one thing that we do have to talk about to explain to people, because you do have literally an army of fans. I think probably, I would say at least 500 of the people in the Tasty Monthly Jam group are probably fans of yours. I could probably take responsibility for maybe 800, but I invited those people personally.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So I just know where this is going, actually. And
well, yeah, so we have to kind of let everybody know that we can't let you win every single month.
No, of course not. No, I wouldn't want it, to be honest.
But we still want you to.
I'll bow out now and just be involved on the peripherals. But
as we were talking about last night, just to let everybody know. So what we're going to do is Paul is actually going to be the sort of guest judge on the next one, and he will submit a jam, I hope, same as I will. But we won't. Obviously, I can't win, and Paul can't win. And that will probably be for another 3 months, right? So there'll be like 3 more opportunities. And then what will happen is, as long as Paul is willing, and I'm sure he is, I have been picking the kind of 3 people for each category. And then what will happen is I'll pick 2 for each category, and then Paul will pick 1 for each category. So between the 2 of us, we will actually pick the 9 people. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to you, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and then hopefully what we'll do is the next winner. Then you'll pick 1, he'll pick 1, and I'll pick 1, and then after that we'll probably get together again and figure out how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
So basically, you're still going to be part of the family, and hopefully all your fans will obviously vote for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they might all just go away until you come back.
I don't think so. I mean, the standard was so incredibly high, and even the people that didn't make the final 9, there were some absolutely incredible players there, and a couple of people that I know.
Yeah.
They were absolutely fantastic, and it's a bit sad sometimes because there's it's like what happens in real life. There's some absolutely brilliant guitarists, and some of them never ever get discovered. And some people might have a lucky break and be discovered. And life is a bit unfair sometimes, and it's sad. But I try and keep things as fair with everyone as I can, because I'm a Libran by star sign. I like balance and kind of to be fair. So absolutely, I'll help as much as I can on this.
Yeah. Although I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of people don't know that another competition that I wasn't really invited. I sort of owned half of it, but it was more of a commercial venture as opposed to this. But was the Guitar Idol thing. And most people don't realise that Tom Quayle actually came second.
Yeah, I know, that's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
But it did kind of launch his career, and it did kind of move him forward. At least that's what I'm going to say. He might disagree, but I felt it launched his career, and it kind of got him into the public eye to a big degree, and he didn't win. So I know, for me, I don't necessarily think it's about. It's great to win, and it's brilliant, and obviously massive congratulations to you. But I do think that just taking part is a fun thing, and I think you would agree that in the group there's been a lot of support between the participants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
I noticed that Pablo sent you a nice message.
Yeah. No, he did, and he's an absolute diamond, and he's such a great guitarist, but also more than that, he seemed such a nice guy as well. And I was glad to win, but I also felt very sorry for him as well, because we were very neck and neck a lot of the time, and the voting was up and down. And
there was one time when he was ahead of you.
And I think we've both got a lot of fans and a lot of friends, and that's all good. But the good thing about it is, because of that, we've managed to introduce more people to the group, and
absolutely.
That will go further and further. And
absolutely.
I'm a firm believer in kind of taking things forward now and trying to get as many people interested as possible. Yeah. You got my full this.
That was the reason that I did let the voting go open a little bit further than I normally would have done, because they're 7 hours behind.
Yes.
So it was literally just to allow a little bit of time for them to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Mexicans, they love sleeping. So don't send me loads of hate messages. I'm talking about my position.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm learning about all things Brazilian at the moment. Rod, our singer guitarist from Rock Candy, is Brazilian.
oh,
I'm trying to learn a little bit of Portuguese if I can, but I'm failing miserably at the moment. But I shall try. But Rod's doing really well with his English, and he says that he doesn't speak very good English, but he speaks much better English than a lot of English people. He's doing incredibly well.
well, there's nothing, you know, if you're around a bunch of English people, you know, in a band, just one way to learn it. Funny enough, it was a really weird thing. Sometimes you don't realise. I saw an interview with the guy. I think it's Jeff Scott Soto, the guy who used to sing in Yngwie Malmsteen's band.
All right. Yes.
And he was saying that it was really, really tough for him because they all just spoke Swedish, even though they all spoke perfect English when they were together, because they were all Swedish. And he said he felt really left out. It's a really funny thing, something you don't really think about, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, Paul, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, super congratulations on winning the first ever Tasty Monthly Jam. Absolutely brilliant. Very, very proud. And thank you, and thank you to Rose for helping grow the group and all your fans that voted and everybody that took part. That's brilliant. And obviously, we're going to see another entry from you, but it will be kind of like a sort of honorary entry for the next 2 or 3 months. And then you'll be, for the next 2 or 3 months, you'll be like a honorary judge or next month or two, honorary judge along with myself, picking the next people. You'll pick, like I said before, you can't pick 1.5 people, but you'll pick one person for each category, and I'll do the other 2. And then the next winner will join us, and then we'll probably do a little meeting and see where we want to go from there. So if there's anything you want to say to finish off.
No, I'm fine. But thank you very much, Stuart. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this, and thank you for faithing me. And I'm absolutely chuffed with this. And thanks to everyone who submitted entries for the August Monthly Jam. It was absolutely fantastic, and long may it continue. Let's see a few more people.
Definitely. Well, we came out of the gate pretty strong, so let's see what happens. Okay, Paul, listen, thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant to speak to you. And of course, I'll be uploading the next track probably tomorrow. And then, you know, it'll be down to me and you will be judging the next thing. And we're all going to start again and push it forward. It's going to be fun.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Take care. See ya.
Cheers.